Hello, uh, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so very good afternoon to all the participants. For this session, we have with us Dr. Ram Prasad Padi as the expert speaker for this session. He will be presenting his talk on the topic AI for cyber security. So let me take the privilege to introduce him before he start his talk. Dr. Ram is currently serving as an assistant professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at IIITDM Kanchipuram. He received his BTech and PhD degree both from NIT Rourkela. He has 5 years of cumulative industrial research experience with Samsung Research Institute Delhi and Siemens Technology and Services Private Limited, Bangalore. His research interests include machine learning, computer vision, autonomous robotics, and visual surveillance. His research publications comprises international journals, conferences, and patents in these domains. He has also served as reviewer in many peer-reviewed international journals and conferences. So with this small introduction, I hand over the session to Dr. Ram.
1 second, sir.
Yeah.
So, good afternoon, all. Let me share my screen. Just give me 1 second. Sanjay, sir, I am not able to share the entire screen. Okay, now I
Yeah,
am.
yeah. Yes, yes, yes.
Is my screen visible?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. So let me start. So myself, Dr. Ramprasad Padi. Okay. So my talk for this FDP is artificial intelligence for cyber security. Okay. So actually, this talk was scheduled for yesterday, but thanks to Sanjay sir, I had some commitments, so I requested him, and he was generous enough to swap his session with me, and I'm really thankful for that. Okay. So at last, I got an opportunity to showcase the area where we can use artificial intelligence for cybersecurity. Okay. So before we start, let me go through one question. Everyone is talking about artificial intelligence now, be it any field, whether it is image processing or computer vision or autonomous robotics or self-driving cars or software engineering, even in networking. Okay, everyone is talking about artificial intelligence. Okay, so cybersecurity is not an exception because the amount of online data that we are getting now it's huge. Every day we are getting so much video, so many text and everything, so much social medias are there like this Facebook, WhatsApp, everywhere we are getting so much data. Okay, so the safeguarding of the data is very important. Also, with this large amount of data, if you do it with human operators, it would be very cumbersome work. We would not be able to safeguard that much amount of data by just by invoking some of the known algorithms or some of the human operated algorithms. So we need something which can automate itself, and that is where this term artificial intelligence comes into account. Okay, so artificial intelligence is nothing but something that can be automated. Okay, so in cyber security terms we can say that how to safeguard the data. There is like large amount of data that is stored in clouds, that is stored in our servers everywhere. So how to safeguard the data using automated algorithm, that is what is known as artificial intelligence for cyber security. Okay, so this is just a gist of the talk that I am going to talk about. Okay, so my talk would comprise, it would take about like introduction, what is the need of the cyber security, and how this AI and ML algorithms have revolutionized the whole cyber security domain. Okay, then we will see the need for AI ML in cyber security domain and applications of AI in cyber security. Then we will just look into these fundamentals of machine learning, because at the end I am going to do some hands-on programming to detect the spams on the email. Okay, so to do that, we first need to know some of the ML algorithms. Okay, how these ML algorithms actually work, and we will use some of this. Okay, not all of this, some of these algorithms. Okay, to actually implement a hands-on programming. Okay, I will do it on my screen. There you can see, and at the end of this lecture, I will again share those programs with you. Okay, we will do the hands-on programming where we will detect an email cybersecurity threat with an ML algorithm. Okay. Okay, let's start the talk. What is the need for cybersecurity? Okay, so you can see I have taken this data from a site called Cybersecurity Ventures. You can see the in 2015 the cybersecurity damage or the global ransomware damage. You know about ransomware where you get a link where they ask for money or else your data is compromised. Okay, so global ransomware damage cost in 2015 was $325 million, which increased to $20 billion in 2021, which is like we can say it is like 57 times. You can see the global ransomware damage in just 6 years, it has increased to 57 times from 325 million to 20 billion in 2021. And this is going to increase to 265 billion in next 10 years. So you can see the amount of global economy that is compromised because of this ransomware damages. So we need to come up with robust cybersecurity algorithms which can safeguard our data. Okay. Also, the recovery cost. Whenever someone's data is compromised because of this ransomware, you can see the recovery cost up from rupees 8 crore in 2020 to 24.5 crore in 2021. This is in India data. I have take this data from this side in India. The recovery cost was from 8 crore in 2020, and in 2021 it is 24.5 crores. Okay, so you can see how it impacts the economy. Also, the average time to detect is 280 days. Like if someone's data is compromised because of some threat or something, it takes 280 days to actually detect it. Okay. In another research says that if these 280 days can be reduced to 200 days, then we can save $1 million. $1 million can be saved just by decreasing this number from 280 days to 200 days. Okay, so for how to decrease it? The robust cybersecurity algorithms will help us to detect the threats more accurately. Okay, that is where the AI will come into account, because handling this many amount of data or this large sum of data is not possible using the standard algorithm. So we need something, the automated algorithm, which can detect on the go, or you can say in real time. Okay. So the cybersecurity market, which is like 217.9 billion in 2021, is expected to grow at a cumulative average growth rate of 9.7% and reach at 345.4 billion. Okay, so you can see the economy largely depends on cybersecurity threats. Okay, so we need to one second. So sorry. So we need to come up with very good cybersecurity algorithms. So you can see in 2004 it was only 3.5 billion US dollars. Now it has reached to 217.9 billion US dollars. Okay. So different market players such as the IBM, Cisco, Checkpoint, FireEye. I've given some of the names who are working on the cybersecurity algorithms to come up with AI-based, more specifically AI-based cybersecurity algorithms. They are working day and night to come up with robust algorithms. This is just a small list, but the list is very high. Even there are some Indian companies. I could not find the actual names, so I could not mention over here. I will mention some of the US giants. So you can see these players are working day and night to come up with cybersecurity algorithms. Okay, so you can see the need for the cyber security is at the highest level now as compared to the previous year. Now we will come to a term where we say that AI ML is the need of the hour to come up with this automated cybersecurity algorithm. But why? That is also important. So one of the surveys from McKinsey Global Institute, McKinsey Global Institute, you can say that they are showing that AI is contributing to the transformation of the global economy at the highest level. Okay, it is 10 times faster, 300 times at the scale, and 3,000 times fast compared to the first industrial revolution. Compared to the first industrial revolution, we are at the industrial revolution 4.0. Okay, we are at the 4.0. So industrial revolution 1.0, which started in 1760, I think, 1760 to 1855 or something. So in the first industrial revolution, if you compare this with the industrial revolution 4.0, which comprises of AI, IoT, and robotics. It's a fusion of AI, IoT, and robotics, Industry 4.0. Okay, so Industry 4.0, the global economy is transforming as it was never before. It is 10 times faster, 300 times at the scale, and 3,000 times the first industrial revolution. Okay, So is AI/ML new? Is this concept something new? No, it's not. AI/ML was there well before. In 1950s only the concepts have been started. Even in 1980s, the people come up with the ML algorithms, very good ML algorithms. But the problem at that point was that there was not enough amount of data. The data was a scarcity at that point. There was no internet, or there was no platform where people can save their data. Okay, but now the data is something like we are getting on the go. The data are sourced, like said, in clouds. Data are shared everywhere. The servers can be accessed within a point within 1 second. Okay, so because of this data availability, this AI ML algorithm which were developed in 1950s to 2000s, they are actually transforming. They are actually becoming much more better, and we are able to run these algorithms now. Okay, in 2008 or somewhere, we got this GPU, the graphical process, very good graphical processing units. Okay, which are designed just for running this ML and deep learning algorithms, which gives very good accuracy also, and within a reasonable amount of time. So you can see after this year 2008 and 2009, it just boomed. This AI ML, it just boomed. And because of this ImageNet, there is a data set called as ImageNet, which stores the images from different domains. Okay, it has like 10 million images or something. Because of these images, people are able to work on this DL and ML algorithm from right, left, and center. Okay, so then the AI ML is boom like anything. The algorithms are coming in every day. You will come across some algorithm which is better than the previous one. Okay, so cyber security should not lag behind in this. Cyber security should also use the advantage of this AI ML to actually come up with these algorithms which could give you, or which could help you to safeguard your data. Okay, so some of the applications you can see in AI ML revolution, it is used in healthcare, it is used in cyber security, it is used in military, finance, surgical systems, prosthetic limbs, digital secretary, space programs, floor cleaners, or robotics. In general, we can say in robotics. Okay, in robotics, or in anything, anywhere you can find any field of research nowadays, you will say that people will say that artificial intelligence or machine learning should be used. Even our government of India projects, you will see, you can say that artificial intelligence in smart cities, or artificial intelligence for clean energy. They will say that artificial intelligence and machine learning should be used, because everyone knows that that is the way to go, because it is faster, it handles large amount of data in very minimal amount of time, which if the human operators work on that, it will take months to operate. But using artificial intelligence, we will be able to do it like just in minutes or in seconds. Okay, so in every field, artificial intelligence is now a go-to talk. Okay, so you can see in different institutes, even in IIIT where I work, we actually started an artificial intelligence major in MTech. Okay, so every institute, even if you go to the private institute or government institute, they are taking artificial intelligence itself as stream. Okay, different from computer science. Although it generated from computer science, they are taking this artificial intelligence at a different stream. Okay, so artificial intelligence, cyber security people should work on these algorithms to come up with robust techniques. Okay. Now, self-driving cars. Okay, actually, I get this slide because this is one of my research areas. Self-driving cars, using cybersecurity algorithms for self-driving cars. Okay, so if you go to a self-driving car, you will see that there are many sensors available. In a self-driving cars, you will get a camera, you will get a lidar. Okay, you will get a radar. There is a GPS, there is a IMU, there is a there are two different kinds of leaders you will find. One is the range leader, and one is the single state or SSD leader, we say that. Okay, single shot leader or something, SSD. Okay, so you will see these many in 1 second. If you run this all this data in one, if you run all these sensors in 1 second, you will get around 2 GBs of data in 1 second. Okay, sometimes what we need to do is that from this autonomous vehicles, we need to save this data with the cloud server. Okay, because you can see in this diagram, the data generated by this vehicle is saved by this all these vehicles that are there in the vicinity. They save this data. Even they say it is a two-way process. Every vehicle shares this data with the other vehicle using some cloud technology. Okay, if there is some compromise in the data, or someone attacks this data in the somewhere in the middle, then this autonomous vehicle, which we generally do, that would not be possible, because the data that I will get should not be compromised. Okay, So you can see the data that is generated in the autonomous vehicles should also be safeguarded using some cybersecurity. Okay, so nowadays the self-driving cars are a boom because of this artificial intelligence only, and we are using same artificial intelligence algorithm to come up with some technique to safeguard this data. Okay, this is just a overview of how these different sensor systems are used to detect different types of things. Okay, this is not in the context of cybersecurity, but again, we need to know if we want to work on the autonomous vehicle domain, and at the same time, we need to safeguard the data that is generated by the autonomous vehicles. Okay, so now we will go to, so till now we saw what is the need of the cybersecurity. Then we saw why AI ML is such a big thing. Okay, now we will see how this AI ML can be used in the cybersecurity. Okay, how this AI ML algorithm can be actually used in this cybersecurity domain. Exponential increase in the spread of threats associated with the daily fusion of new innovative malware. So every day we come up with some of the hackers are coming up with some innovative malwares. Okay, so exponential increase in spread of threats is happening. Okay, also there is one question: can AI develop a malware by itself? We will see to that. Okay, I have asked that, I have answered that question. Can AI develop itself a malware? Okay, we are using AI to detect the malwares. So can the hackers come up with innovative algorithms where they can use the AI to actually develop a malware? Then it is like something like AI versus AI. How to detect those things? Then the second point is data handling. Huge amount of data. Every day we are getting petabytes of data. How to handle that? Impossible for human operators. That is something trivial, right? Human operators just can't handle this many amount of data. Or this would be a cumbersome task. This will take lots of days and years to actually come safeguard those data. Okay, fast action. Okay, using AI algorithms, we can take fast action because in minutes we will be able to detect what has happened. Okay, what the cybersecurity has been compromised, and we can come up with fast algorithm. Protection, it can protect the data, which is the basic need of our algorithms, cybersecurity algorithms. Time saving and enhanced efficiency. So you can see, as compared to these human operators, this AI algorithm will detect threats much more easily and in a convenient amount of time. So time saving is happening. At the same, we are doing enhanced efficiency, because you can see the humans can use their time in other tasks to come up with different other AI ML algorithm which would be better than the previous ones, instead of just using their time to detect the threats. So efficiency is increased. Okay, we are saving the resources also because we are not using humans, so the manpower resource is saved to some other task, and we are using just a computer to detect the threats. Okay, adapting to the changes related to the presence of the unprecedented threats. Okay, sometimes so it may happen that some ransomware that which was not there previously suddenly comes. Okay, so our algorithms would not be able to detect that because it is some new kind of threat. Okay, like last year I think some ransomware came which was very difficult to handle. Okay, because those kind of ransomwares which new adapting changes, they are coming with adapting different changes. Okay, so how to detect those? That is where the AI can be helpful by using the signature. So what are the signature of different threats, from where site or from which site actually that came? Using all this data, AI can come up with algorithms like itself where we can detect this unprecedented threats. Okay, analysts need to manage the tools and methods of cybersecurity. Okay, analysts need to manage that. At the same time, interpret and evaluate the results offered by AI and ML algorithms. So they not only just do the managing of the tools and methods that the cybersecurity algorithms, AI-based cybersecurity algorithms, but at the same time, they should interpret like what is the output coming. Is it actually correct, or is it just giving some bogus data? Okay, is it able to detect? Let's say I will give you an example on spam emails. Okay, so Gmail is you can see in 2000 when or in 2005 when I started Gmail. At the time when some spam email came, I just have to click it and put it into the spam folder. There was a spam folder, but the Gmail was not automatically detecting the spam folders. Okay, or the spam emails, not the folders. So Gmail was not automatically putting into the spam folders. We have to select it and put it into the spam. Then maybe Gmail was using some signature like yes, if the data is coming from this website, then we will put it into the spam. Okay, there they were using that we can say it is artificial intelligence only, but it's a static artificial intelligence. That was not dynamic. But nowadays, if you go to your spam folder, you will see that they are able to detect like almost 90% of the spams. Okay, so you can see every time the analysts not only just manage the tools of the cyber security, at the same time they are interpreting and evaluating the results offered by AI/ML algorithm. They are checking. Okay, we are getting 90% accuracy. Where does the 10% accuracy we lack? Okay, they will check those mails. Then they will increase their efficiency. Of course, 100% is not possible, but always they will come to the a term where they could say that they are able to detect the threats at a better accuracy than the previous algorithms. Okay, so the analysts need to manage the tools and methods of cyber security, at the same time interpret and evaluate the results offered by AI/ML algorithms. Okay, okay. So I was asking you one question: can AI develop a malware? Okay, so let's say I will give you one example. Let's say you got a business email from your boss. Okay, let's say we are in a company, you got a mail from your boss saying that please pay the invoice. He will just send a invoice with some account numbers. He will say that pay the invoice for that, pay the amount for this invoice. Okay, and it is from a authenticated mail. Authenticate mail. Okay, from your boss mail only. Okay, this can be done. So if you think in terms of AI, this can be done using there's a tool called natural language processing, which uses the your behavioral pattern of your mails. Okay, let's say I'm sending some mail to someone, okay, or some people. What it will do, if your Gmail is compromised, then what it will do is that it will collect different emails that you are sending. Then it will come up with a natural language processing algorithm using the AI, and it will generate one email which would look like very human-like. Okay, you will not be able to detect that. That's where this artificial intelligence, chat box and all this speech boxes are also generating nowadays. Okay, they will act like humans. Okay, this can be done using an NLP from base. Okay, but what you find out that my boss never sends this kind of emails to me. Why does he send it to me? Okay, so what he can do, what as a responsible employee, what you can do is that you can call your boss and ask, sir, did you really send me this mail giving some invoice and sending me, telling me to pay this? Okay, but when the hackers work, they are very intelligent. Okay, what they can do is that your phone is also hacked at the same time, your email at the same time, that your phone can also be hacked, both of them can be hacked. Okay, now what it will happen that you will be connected to a speech bot with your boss voice. This is also some kind of natural language processing only, where what they do is that they will hack your data for some days, and at the same time, by using this data, this voice data, they will generate a speech bot which will give your boss voice. So if you ask your boss, sir, did you really send me one email saying that to pay this certain invoice? The answer would be yes. The time is already, we are lagging behind. You can send it now. This kind of answers will come with your boss voice. So this will look like authentic. So now the question is, it really possible? Yes, this kind of things actually have happened. People who work on IBM and Google, they have come up with algorithms where they've tested that yes, this kind of things have happened before. People are actually getting this kind of calls. Okay, so this is a great threat because the hackers are using AI. Now the hackers are using AI. Okay, so we are coming up with algorithms, cybersecurity algorithms where AI is used. At the same time, the hackers are also using AI to come up with innovative algorithms. Okay, so it's a AI versus AI. It's something it is going to be very difficult in the future, and we should be ready for that. Okay, as cybersecurity professionals, we should be ready for that. So you can see in the past, people were using just antivirus softwares or host intrusion protection systems or sandboxing algorithm, isolation algorithm, detect and respond algorithms in the past, and currently these kind of algorithms are used like this GIFs, sandboxing, isolation, detect and respond. All these algorithms are used. Previously, if you go before 2000s, what you will see that only some antivirus algorithm was able to safeguard your data. Okay, then people come up with host intrusion protection system, then sandboxing, isolation, and detect and respond algorithms. In the present era, actually, present era is AI because we are already into this AI domain. But if you go to like 2-3 years back or 4 years back, you will find that people were using these kind of algorithms to actually detect the threats. Okay, now future lies in AI. Okay, where you don't have to think of an algorithm. Actually, you should use your artificial intelligence where you will use the previous data, okay, and the system will learn itself what kind of cybersecurity algorithms should be employed. The system will learn it by itself. Okay, so it is like your biological intelligence only. So in see, remember when you were a child, okay, if I give you a mango, okay, if you have not seen it, will you be able to say that it's a mango? Will not. After seeing some kinds of mangoes, if I give you a mango, then you will say that it's a mango. Okay, this is biological intelligence. There we use your human brain, where the different neurons are there, where different senses are there. We have different senses. So using your eye sensor, you just recognize, yes, if the shape is like this, then it's a mango. Okay, so after some days, if some mango is shown to you, then you will say that it's a mango or it's a banana or something like that. Similar, same concept is being replicated or mimicked in artificial intelligence, where we say that you see these kind of data are malicious data, this kind of data where the security has been compromised. So if something of that kind comes in future, your algorithm should say that it's a threat. Okay, that is how the artificial intelligence is used. You don't generate the algorithm, rather you provide the data where you say that yes, those were the things where problem has happened, so you should detect these kind of threats in future. Okay, so in future what is going to happen is that threat actors could also use AI to discover new innovative tools to come up with new malwares. Okay, threat actors, when you say it's the hackers, okay, not ethical hackers, by the way. AI could be used as an effective tool to help them decide what, when, and whom to attack. So they will also use the AI to detect, to decide what, when, and whom to attack. Okay, it is going to be AI versus AI thing. In future, it is going to be AI versus AI. If it comes to cybersecurity, it will be AI versus AI. So will that be a existential crisis? If you come to a term where this AI versus AI, then people should come. We should move from AI to some other domain. Okay, where we should come up with more robust algorithms. Okay, so this, will we reach to a place where this existential crisis will come? No one can answer this. This will be only answered in future. We can't answer. If you can answer this, then we are in a safe place. Okay, so only research is going to help us. If we do research, very good research in this field, then we will be able to subside the threat every time it comes. Okay, so different applications in AI in cybersecurity, intrusion detection, where you already know this emails came where this you have to you get some JavaScript file or some script file. If you click it, then your data is compromised. Or you can say in the network protection, where this data comes through a network where the intrusion can happen. That's why this intrusion detection system we generally put it in the network routers. Okay, where it will be able to detect an intrusion. Inappropriate web content, every time you click on something you will get some inappropriate web content. If you click something, then it will ask for money. Okay, so there AI can be used, like to how not to click these kind of links, or if you click onto that it will not open. Okay, those kind of inappropriate web contents. Now you can see every institute has their own firewall. Okay, so in this firewall every time they update it, because you can see if you open some, let's say some content which is not ethical or not even ethical, which is like which can compromise your data. So those kind of AI systems they is put by the different firewalls, so that if you even if you click it, it will say that you will not be able to open it. Okay, phishing, where the person sends his data through some emails or something. If they ask for something saying that you will get this much amount of money if you click onto this link. So phishing is something where the hackers take your personal data and use it for other purposes. Those kind of things can also be detected using AI. Inappropriate email content. Okay, spam emails. Okay, you get spam emails. I am already giving you example the spam emails, how this come. We will do one exercise over here, how to detect the spam emails. Okay, in the end I have one exercise where we will actually do the hands-on, where we will find the inappropriate email content or the spam emails, and we will differentiate it with the actual good emails. Okay, then endpoint protection, where you can see the ransomware. The people just send a mail where they are giving a link. They ask for some ransom. If you do not if you click on that link, that your computer is completely hacked. You will not be able to do anything. Okay, your computer will be completely hacked, and even, as long as you are not paying anything, you are not going to open your data. Okay, so that endpoint protection, like how not to click that ransomware links, all those things can be safeguarded using AI. Okay, also these ransomware attacks are nowadays very difficult, because I was reading one article where I found out that even if you pay some ransom, you will not be able to get your 100% data. Only 4% of people out of 100%, only 4% of people get their actual data. Okay, even after paying, I'm saying. Okay, those who do not pay, their 100% data is compromised. Those who pay, out of that only 4% get their actual data, and only 75% of data can be found out by paying ransom. Okay, only 75% of data. And 4% of people only get their whole data, not the all data. Okay, whole data, no, other 96% they are not able to get the whole data. Only 75% of data they would be able to get. Okay, then this application security. Okay, different kinds of application using, like let's say you are using this Microsoft Teams or Zoom. How this data can be protected? Okay, I am giving you a speech. Okay, it will be saved through some online mode, or it will be used to save in a server. Then how that application can be secured? All this Zoom. So when this pandemic period started, you can see this Google Meet or this Zoom or this Microsoft Teams. The type of protection that was there before, 1 year before, you can see this protection has increased now. Okay, so you can see every time the people are coming with algorithms which, like this, their application can be much more secure, so that people will use it. Okay, suspect user behavior. Okay, so let's say you are having a server where you are hosting a website. Okay, at that time your AI algorithm will run to find out whether there is a suspect user behavior is happening. This will happen in real time. Okay, real time suspect user behavior. Okay, so if you find something that in real time something suspecting is happening, you can block that user. Even Facebook is doing that nowadays. If you share some suspect contents, let's say some regarding some riot or something, you share something, then this Twitter and Facebook will block you. Okay, that is where the suspect user behavior. Every now and then you can see that some politicians Twitter is being blocked by Twitter, and because they are sharing some suspect content. Okay, I'm not naming anyone, because this kind of things are happening. And Twitter, there is no one in Twitter, there is no human operator in Twitter who just browsing through the tweets. Actually they are using AI and artificial intelligence algorithms actually to detect whether there is any suspect content is being shared by someone or not. Okay, if they find something suspecting, then they will block that user. So this happens in real time. Okay, generally this deep learning algorithms, so we'll come to this term. I have not given you what is deep learning till now. So generally these deep learning algorithms are being used to detect this suspect user behavior. Okay? So the tasks related to, so if you divide all the tasks, we saw the applications, if you divide these tasks to different, this application to different tasks, generally you will find three types of tasks that are happening in AI ML, in cybersecurity using AI. The first task is classification. Okay, what happens in classification? Identify the types of similar attacks. Okay, such as different pieces of malware belonging to the same family. Okay, like this, the Trojan horse virus was there. Trojan horse virus was there. Okay, so if let's say these attackers come up with an algorithm or come up with a hacking software which mimics the behavior of Trojan horse. Okay, and you have this data for the Trojan horse. The next time this someone or some better version of Trojan horse coin, this AI ML algorithm should be able to classify it. Okay, so that is where the classification algorithms come into account. Identify the types of similar attacks such that different pieces of malware belonging to the same family that is having common characteristic and behavior. Okay, like this email spam detection. Then another task is the clustering. Okay, clustering is distinguished from classification by the ability to automatically identify the classes. Okay, so here there you don't know that whether it's a Trojan horse kind or whether it's a spam email, nothing, you don't know. But what the algorithm will do is that without using any classification algorithm, it will try to cluster. Okay, it will try to find out, yes, this can be of one family, like this Trojan horse and this spam email can be of one family. Do not click on the list. So it will do some clustering kind of thing. So that is how you define this clustering from classification. Okay, so malware analysis and forensic systems generally use this clustering algorithms. Then this predictive analysis by exploiting the neural networks. This is neural networks, NN means neural networks, okay, or deep learning. Deep learning, okay. By exploiting neural networks and deep learning, it is possible to identify threats as they occur. That is in real time. I to give you an example in the last slide only. This user suspect user behavior. This is the predictive analysis only. Okay. By exploiting the neural networks and deep learning, it is possible to identify the threats as they occur. Now we completed the part where we say that this is so we looked into why this cyber security is highly important. Then we came to the term why this AI ML is of such a hype, and how cyber security is actually, how AI ML is actually helping in cyber security. We saw that till now. Now we will see the different terms that I am using for some time now. What is AI? What is ML? And what is DL? That is, what is artificial intelligence? What is machine learning? And what is deep learning? Are they same or are they similar terms? That we need to know. Okay. So artificial intelligence is a program that can sense, reason, and act and adopt. As I already told you, artificial intelligence is something where you don't come up with, you don't tell that this is the algorithm that you need to run. The program itself will come up with algorithms, better algorithms. As it was using, let's say, X version, next time it will come up with the X-based version after seeing the pattern of data. Okay, that is what artificial intelligence is. A program that can sense the region, act, and adopt. It will adopt itself. Okay, but machine learning is a sub area of artificial intelligence. You can see the artificial intelligence is the bigger. Okay, you can say if it's the universe, then machine learning is just a subdomain. Okay, it's the bigger domain. Artificial intelligence is the bigger domain. It is considered as the broad field of research. Is there someone asking something? Artificial intelligence is the broader field of research as compared to ML. ML is just a subfield of AI. ML algorithms whose performance improve as they are exposed to more data. So ML algorithms are data hungry, we can say. So if your data is there, then this data can be used in your algorithm to come up with algorithm. But AI itself doesn't require data. AI itself can adapt to different conditions. Okay, you have given a small algorithm which can adopt sense and reason and come up with a better algorithm. But machine learning is something which is data. If data is there, then this data can be fit. Like you have some previous year's threat data, you provide it to the algorithm, then it will use the data to come up with algorithms which can prevent the threat in the future. Okay, that is what is machine learning is. Okay, so AI is considered as a broad field of research that includes ML. AI can manage data of a more generic and abstract nature. Even so, in machine learning, if you run the machine learning algorithms, you need to have the structured data. Okay, unstructured data can also be handled. There is this unsupervised learning which we are going to see. But more importantly, we need data of it should not be of abstract nature. It should be of some structured nature. Mostly. Okay. AI enables the transfer of common solutions to different types of data without the need of complete retraining. Okay, from one domain. So if it is able to detect a threat in spam emails, then we can use similar kind of algorithms to a malware detection such as the Trojan horse or something. Okay, so AI enables the transfer of common solutions to different types of data without the need of complete retraining. But in case of ML, actually, if you are using, let's say, spam email data to detect whether it's a spam or not a spam, okay, you cannot use the same model for an algorithm which uses to differentiate between Trojan horse or any other malware. Okay, you can't directly use it. You need to retrain it. Okay, but AI algorithms as a whole, if you see it, you can transform from one domain to the other without the need of complete retraining. Then what is deep learning, which is the very it's a fire term nowadays. People are using deep learning from every left, right, and center. Okay, so ML is the broader field of research. Then deep learning is included inside it, which uses the artificial neural networks. You can say deep learning is a artificial neural networks. Deep learning is a subfield of machine learning which uses the artificial neural networks to come up with models which will be able to do a certain task. Okay, it's a subset of machine learning only, in which multi-layered artificial neural networks learn from vast amounts of data. Okay, so this if we say that machine learning is hungry for data, deep learning is very hungry for data. Okay, without data, deep learning algorithms are not going to run. Okay, so you can see why this deep learning algorithms, even though they were proposed in 1980s, they were not able to come into existence till 2008, because up to 2008 or 10 the data was not there. These online platforms were not that much advanced where people can save the data. But as we come to this 2008 to 10, you can see this ImageNet data set or other data sets, they started to grow. Okay, so then these algorithms also started to what do you say, so flowers or fruits, you can say, because of this data. Now people are able to actually use the deep learning algorithms that were defined in 1980s. Okay, once they use these deep learning algorithms, by using this accuracy and everything, they will come up with different advanced algorithms. Okay, that's why you can see from 2008 onwards, the deep learning has grown like anything. Okay, specifically the field I am working on, this machine learning, computer vision, everywhere. Okay, the deep learning has been a go-to term for this autonomous vehicle also. Autonomous vehicle was like, people were at the beginning of 2000, people were not optimistic about the autonomous vehicle, even though they are saying that we will come up with autonomous vehicles, autonomous underwater vehicles, or autonomous unmanned aerial vehicles, but people were not optimistic. But after this DL came, people are working like anything, like this Tesla or Waymo or Google. Everyone is now working on this autonomous vehicle domains, where they use this artificial neural networks to train the data and come up with algorithms which human mind can't. Okay, so artificial, so deep learning is, we can say, it's a subset of machine learning, and machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence. So these three terms are not same. Okay, so a DL lies inside ML, ML lies inside artificial intelligence. Okay, so in this from now onwards, from these slides, we will see some of the ML algorithms and how we can detect some of the spams in an email. Okay, that is why I have written a hands-on programming. So till now I gave you a gist of how this AI ML algorithm can be used in cyber security, what is this AI, what is ML, what is real, and everything. Okay, now we will see how this machine learning algorithms can be able to detect a spam list. Okay, so before that, I will just give you some little bit fundamentals. Okay, ML enables computers to learn, adapt, and extrapolate patterns. Okay, so this is using data. This is similar to AI only, but using data. Without data, it is not able to learn. Okay, ML enables computers to learn, adapt, and extrapolate patterns using data. This system learns by itself, hence needs minimal or no human intervention. Minimal or human intervention, you can say it's negligible, because the system is able to learn by itself. ML paradigms teach the computer to learn how to solve the problem. This is same as artificial intelligence. So the applications, if you see in cybersecurity, we have already shown the fraud detection, catch email frauds, network anomaly detection, malicious event detection, financial fraud detection, and many more. So if you go to the applications of this ML in cybersecurity, there are many applications like this fraud detection, email fraud detection, spam or not a spam, network anomaly. If there is a network anomaly, you will be able to find it using this ML algorithms. Okay. So data in machine learning, what is the importance of data? Data is the fuel that drives ML engine. Without data, you will not be able to do it. So but if you are saying we will be able to classify the spam emails, okay. So if you don't have the data, where you say that if X message is a spam or not, okay, if you don't have this data, then you will not be able to do whether your Y message is a spam or not. Okay, is a spam or not. So if you don't know, if you have data where you say that X message is a spam or not, you will not be able to. If a new message, Y message you will not be able to say whether it's a spam or not. Okay, so data is the fuel that drives the machine learning engine. Data, when fed to ML system, help in detecting patterns and mining the data. Okay, this is self-explanatory. Now, this data can be divided into again structured, unstructured, or semi-structured data. Like this, let's say you take some, let's say you have some email. Okay, I will give you examples in cybersecurity domain. Let's say you get some email. Okay, let's say if you don't classify this data, whether it's a spam or whether it's a good email, then we can say that it's an unstructured data. But because it will not be you will not be able to use this tags, okay, where you say that it's a spam or not. You will not be able to use it if you don't say that it's a spam or not. Okay, that is where the unstructured data. This is just raw data, or you can say when you say unstructured data, it is just raw data, the raw data that is connected without any labeling. Okay, when you say labeling, then it's a structured data. When you say that labeling means what, we say that yes, this message is a spam, this message is a not a spam. Okay, generally I will use that term, not a spam means ham. Okay, so I will just use that term. I have not used it till now, but we can say that if it's a not labeled, like we are not saying that this X message is not a spam or X message is spam, then it is a structured data. But if you have not done that labeling, you can say that it's an unstructured data. Then data can be also be semi-structured. Like some of the emails are being told that it's spam or ham, and some of the emails you are saying that you have not labeled it. Okay, so you can say that this is semi-structured data. Okay, so then this labeled and unlabeled data I've already told you. So if you go to any machine learning process, you will find out 4 phases. Okay, first is the analysis phase, where the data is analyzed to detect patterns in the data. Okay, then comes the training phase. So before, in analysis phase, you just look into the data to say this kind of patterns are there or not. Okay, then comes the training phase. Okay, which is very important phase, where the data parameters are generated in the previous phases is used to create machine learning models. Okay, you use this data and this labels of this data. Okay, in the label data you use it and do some training to find out models, where if you put some test data, you will be able to detect something. Okay, that is where you can see once the model is trained, the model is passed to the testing data in the testing phase. Okay, in testing data is being used in the testing phase to actually check the data which was not trained. For the new data, you check it what is the accuracy. Based on that accuracy, you come up with points whether needs. So you will, once you do the testing, then only you will be able to know whether you needs more training, okay, or it needs more data. Okay, all these questions will be answered once you get this testing accuracy. Okay, so this is a process which happens, we can say it's a double arrow. Okay, training phase, you come to testing, you come up with some accuracies. If the accuracy is not desired, then you can change your model again. You can change your machine learning model and again check your accuracy. All these things happen as long as you reach to a accuracy where you can say that yes, I reached to a accuracy where I will be able to detect the threats at a good rate. Then comes the application phase. The turn models are finally filled with the real world data. You provide the real world data, and so we are running. So I need to run this hands-on programming, so I will be little fast over here. Okay, so issues in machine learning, the inconsistencies in data. In the training phase, a machine learning model may or may not generalize perfectly, as I told you. Okay, in the training phase, may not generate machine learning models which will not generalize because your data is not consistent. Okay, then you need to come up with the data set which are consistent. Okay, that's why we always say we always use the benchmark or standard data sets because the data would be much more consistent. Okay. Then overfitting. It is a phenomenon in which the system is too fitted to the training data. It will work for the training data. If you run this machine learning model, what you will find out that you are able to get good accuracy in the training phase or the validation phase, we say. But if you comes to the testing data, it will not be able to give you very good results. That is what is overfitting. That means your system is or the model, machine learning model is much more trained towards the training data rather than the real world data. Then underfitting is a term. This is a phenomenon where the performance of the model is affected because the model is not well trained. Okay? This model is not well trained, so you need more training. That is where the underfitting comes. For ideal model performance, both overfitting and underfitting can be prevented by performing some common machine learning like cross validation of the data, data pruning, and regulation. These are some terms I am not going to go in details into. You can just remember. Generally, we use this cross validation, data pruning, and regularization These are three terms. If you go details into it, it will take too much of time. So I'm not going to go in details. So you can just after this session only, you can search what kind of cross validation or pruning and regulation techniques in cybersecurity domain we can use. Okay. Then this machine learning algorithms can again be classified into three different categories. One is supervised learning, one is unsupervised learning, and this one is the reinforcement learning. Okay. So supervised learning is an algorithm where the training is performed using an input data set. Type of output that we have to obtain is already known. That means the data is labeled. Data is labeled. So for each of the data we are given whether this data is what is the class, or we can say if it's an email, we can say that this email is a spam or not. That means that kind of class, spam or not. Okay, so that kind of labeling is already done. The algorithms must be trained to identify the relationship between the variables being trained. Okay, trying to optimize the learning parameters on the basis of target variables. So based on the target variables, you will be able to train an algorithm which will be able to run and test and perform on the test data, where you can say that yes, this message is spam or not. Okay, so I will show you one data set over here. There you can see, one second. So you can see uh, okay. Are you able to see my screen? Can anyone answer? Because I have been speaking for some
Yes,
time
yes,
and
yes,
I'm
sir.
not.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. Okay, phishing data is not phishing. So, you can see I have taken this data set from a site. I will give you that site. So you can see for every message, let's say this is the message, first message, go until jargon point, crazy, available only in boogies and great. I don't know what does that mean, but you can say that the people have added. So while this data set is being published, the makers have made it as a ham. Ham means not a spam. Okay, they are using ham for not a spam, and spam, if it
Sir,
is, it contains some of the words.
sir.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so please zoom it.
Okay,
This
okay, sir.
Excel sheet, yeah, it is not visible. Okay.
Are you able to see it
But
now
yes, yes,
clearly?
that's better.
Okay. So they are saying whether it's a ham or a spam, they have already classified. Or we can say that they have already labeled. They are saying that this message is a ham and this message is a spam and all those things. Now we can take this as an input, trending data, and we will be able to do some classification. Then we will say that yes, by using this training data where this ham and spam are already being labeled, we will, for testing data, we will be able to find out whether a message will be ham or spam. Okay, this is what the labeled data is. Okay, machine learning algorithms generally use this or supervised machine learning algorithms in general uses this kind of label data to come up with models where they will be able to work for the real-time data sets or real-time data. Okay, so a spam filter is in fact trained by submitting an input data set to the algorithm containing many examples of emails that have already been previously classified as spam or ham. So you can see in this example, these are already previously been classified as ham or spam. Okay, now as they are already being classified, now you will use this data, train your model to find out whether a new message will be ham or spam. That is what the supervised learning is. Okay, so you can see I've given the term. Spam means the emails were malicious and unwanted. Ham means the emails were genuine and harmless. Okay, so you can see this in supervised learning. If Apple is given not an, so let's say it's a two-class classification, spam or not a spam kind of thing. So it will be using this predictive model. It will be able to say, if you provide some testing data, it will be able to say whether it's an Apple or not an Apple. Okay, this is supervised learning. Another supervised example is regression. So in regression, I am not going to go in details. So you can just remember there are different supervised algorithms. Regression, KNN algorithms, where we say K nearest neighbor. We will see support vector machine in the at the end of this lecture. We will see how to use this, not the mathematics of support vector machine. Rather than we will see how this support vector machines can be used to differentiate between spam and ham. Okay. Then decision trees and random forests and neural networks. Okay, neural networks where we can say that deep learning algorithms come over here. Then comes the unsupervised learning, which is the opposite of you can say this supervised learning, where you actually have this labeled data. But in unsupervised learning, algorithms must try to classify the data independently without the aid of previous classification. So we can say that we don't have any labeling. We don't know whether the previous data is a spam or ham. We don't know that, but rather we will come up with algorithms where we will be able to do the classification, or the we can say we will be able to classify the data, or we can say in general terms we can say that cluster the data. Okay, so unsupervised learning algorithms are important for identifying new or not previously detected forms of malware attacks, frauds, and email spamming algorithms. Okay, so we can say that, let's say a new algorithm, new threat came which was not there previously. Okay, let's say some attacker come up with a new malware which was not there previously. So all the AI systems that were there, which were trained using some data, will not be able to detect it, because the signature is different. Okay, because the sender is different, because the link is different, so all the signatures are different. So in that case, how will you able to do it? Actually, this is the real world thing. Okay, if you people are sharing this data, they are not labeling in any social media site, whether it's Twitter or Facebook. People are not saying that this is X data or this is Y data. Okay, people just share the data like it is unlabeled data. Okay, so unsupervised learning is going to be a very big research area in future. Even people have started using unsupervised learning. How will you able to detect the data? So you take some images. I will give you, let's say, one example in image processing. Without saying that this image belongs to X person, will you be able to say that that is X person? That is where the unsupervised learning comes into account. Okay, so there are different techniques, or you can say principal component analysis, CA kernel. This is just for your information. Okay, we are not going to go in details of this. So you can see in supervised learning, we were able to detect whether it's an apple or not. Okay, but in unsupervised learning, we are not saying whether it's an apple or mango or banana. We are just clustering. We are saying that okay, these are some similar type of subjects, so we will put into one cluster. Okay, this is another type of data, so we will put it into one cluster. This is another type of data, so that we will put it into one cluster. Okay, so clustering is done, saying that yes. So we will not say whether it's a spam or a ham, or whether it's a Trojan horse or not. We will say that yes, spam or Trojan horse can be one kind of data, and we will put into one kind of cluster. Okay, that is where the unsupervised learning comes into account. Then the reinforcement learning is there. Okay, I will just show the diagram and explain, because we are running out of time. So in reinforcement learning, what happens is that the learning strategy emulates the trial and error approach. Like this, there will be an agent. Means, let's say we are talking about let's say in autonomous vehicle domains. Let's say we don't have the supervised data where the labeling is done. So this reinforced learning, what will happen? It will crash. Let's say this autonomous vehicle crashes. Okay, then there will be agent which will give some positive or negative rewards depending upon what kind of action has been taken. Okay, depending on the environment. Let's say this vehicle crashes, then it will say that you have crashed, so you will get a negative reward. Okay, but if it is able to bypass a obstacle, by successfully bypasses an obstacle, then it will give you a positive point. So this positive and negative point cycle will happen as long as the system comes to a situation where it will get only the positive point. Okay, so this action and observation reward is a continuous process as long as the system learns by itself. Okay, this generally is used in case of autonomous robotics. We can use this kind of algorithms in cyber security too. Okay, so we will use some of the, let's say, malwares or some of the emails saying that if you will be able to detect the spam correctly, you will get a positive reward. If you not, then you will get some negative reward. Okay, so using this positive and negative reward cycle, at the end of the algorithm, at the end of the cycle, you will be able to come up with a model where it will be able to positively detect all these spams. Okay, so that is where the reinforcement learning is used. We can say that this is a semi-supervised learning. We don't have the actual labeled data in this case. Okay, so now we will do a hands-on on detecting email cybersecurity threats with ML. We will use the supervised learning algorithms over here, because I have already shown you the data where this spam and ham is already been where the spam and ham is already been labeled. For each message, a spam label or a ham label is already been given. Okay, so most security threats use email as an attack vector. how to detect the spam with, so we will see how to detect the spam with a perceptron model. What is a perceptron? I am going to tell you. Then we will do spam detection with support vector machine, how to use the SVMs to do the spam detection. Okay, for that, actually these are the system requirements. I will run you and run all these algorithms and show. Okay, so the system requirements is either you can use a Ubuntu 16.04 or a higher version, or a Windows 10 version with a reasonable RAM. Even 8 GB is also okay, but I am using 16 GB and that is preferable. Okay, and multi-core, if you have GPU, then it is an added advantage, because if you come up with deep learning algorithms, then GPU would be the must at that point. Okay, because that will decrease your training time very easily. Okay, if you are using a CPU, then this small spam detection algorithm where you use a small data set, that is possible. But if you come up with deep learning algorithms where you actually this real-time detection is being done, there's this GPU is very important, because the training will take lots of time if you use a in normal CPU. Okay, so I will show you how to create the virtual environment first. Let me open my terminal. So for that, what you need is that first you need to, one second. Okay, first you need to install Python 3.7, because the code that I have written is based on Python 3.7, but you can use other versions of Python like Python 3.6 or 3.54. You can use it, but again, these versions of this other executables that we are going to do will be different in that case. Okay, for my environment, I use Python 3.7. So first you need to install it. First you need to install Python 3.7. Sir, is my screen visible, or do I need to increase the font size over here also?
Yeah, please increase the font size. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Please increase the font.
Let me check how to. Okay. This one. Text. I'm not sure how it is increased.
This custom font is there, na? Below. Just go to text. Custom fonts. Initial terminal size is there. Below that, what is there? Custom font is there, no?
Set.
Yeah.
Custom font.
Now can you?
Okay.
Yeah. Below 12.
Okay, you can increase it. No, this one I think.
Yes.
Okay. Now is it visible?
Yes, clearly visible.
Okay. So we can install this Python 3.7 first. Okay. So you can see this is already being installed in my system. So it's saying that it's being installed. If you install by this command, then you will be able to install Python 3.7. Then we will install the virtual environment. So what is a virtual environment? Virtual environment is like some virtual system. Okay, so whatever the executables or whatever the binaries that we are going to install will be installed in this environment. It is not going to affect your parent system. Okay, so generally we data scientists, what we generally do is that instead of bugging our host system, or we can say root system, we generally create a virtual environment and we work on that. Okay, if something happens or something bad happens, then that virtual environment will only be affected, not the whole system. So we generally use this virtual environment setting. Okay, this is a command you can use, sudo apt get install virtual environment. Okay, those people who are not familiar with Ubuntu, because I am doing this exercise on the Ubuntu, those people who are not what you say familiarized with Ubuntu, they can also use Windows, but the executables will be different. So for Python 3.7, you will get some exe file. If you search in the web, you will get some exe file. For virtual environment also, you will get some exe file, and you need to install from there. So I am doing this demo on a Ubuntu system. That's why I am directly using the command. Okay, now for creating the virtual environment, you can use this command. Okay, virtual environment -p Python 3.7 and give some environment name. Okay, so you can see I gave this command virtual environment -p It will, so it says that which Python to use. So my system has different versions of Python: Python 2, Python 3.5, Python 3.6, and Python 3.7. So as I am using Python 3.7, so I am writing virtual environment minus the Python 3.7, and I am giving the virtual environment name, that is virtual. So it will create a, so if you do a listing of the files, you will see that that's a folder called as virtual now. Okay, so after that you can enter into your virtual environment using this command source. So you will go to this folder virtual bin activate. So you can see, if you do this source virtual bin activate, this is your virtual environment. Now inside that there's a folder called as bin, and there's a activate thing. Okay, activate executable. So if you do that, then you can see there's a, you have entered into the virtual environment now. Okay, you have entered into virtual environment. So whatever the binary executables or whatever the Python executables that you are going to install, that will be installed in this virtual environment only. This is not going to affect your host system or the root system. Okay, so you can see RAM at the that RAM was the host root what do you say, root terminal, but now we have entered into the virtual terminal. That's why a virtual is written over here. Okay, so inside that, these are the some of the pip or Python executables that we need. Okay, so pip install notebook means you will be able to work on the notebook format. Okay, notebook means it's a Jupyter notebook, we call it. We will be able to show in the web platform. It will use your local host only, but at the same time, whatever you will run, you will be able to see it on the web platform, so that the visualization will be much more better. Okay, so first thing we will install is the Jupyter notebook, or the command is pip install. Pip install notebook. Okay, so you can see this Jupyter notebook is being installed. Then pip install watermark. I will tell you while running this algorithm why this pip install watermark is needed. Okay, this is just for showing general. This watermark is general for showing the different versions of the executables that you are using. Then pip install numpy. So those people who are using Python, they must be knowing what is numpy. Generally, this numpy is used for mathematical operations or matrix operations that we do. So many people are using MATLAB, I know. So MATLAB, we generally directly use this matrix formats. Okay, but in Python, you use this numpy package. Okay, to do the mathematical operations or metric operations. Then comes the pandas. Okay, what is a pandas? Pandas is a data frame library. Okay, so if you have a CSV file or something, it will convert into data frames. Like for this time frame, this is the data. For this time frame, this is the data. Or for this date, this is the data. So it will convert into data frames, frameworks. Okay, this is generally used for better management of the data. Instead of directly using the CSV file, you will convert the CSV file to a better managing the data or better visualization of the data. You can say. Then matplotlib is used for visualization, for creating the different types of plots in Python. Okay. Then scikit-learn is the very important library. Scikit-learn is the machine learning library in Python. Whatever the machine learning algorithms that are there in Python will be used using this scikit-learn. Okay. So I am just installing one by one. I will save these slides. You can do it by on your own. So just you have to install it one by one. Okay. Seaborn is again one library where visualization of data can be made better. Okay.
Sir.
Yes, Sanjay sir. Sanjay sir, you are saying something? Sir?
Nothing.
Okay. Okay. So the next one is 1 second. Text block. This is used for natural language processing. We don't need it, but I have put it because there are some messages which are being converted into whether it's a spam or ham. So this text block is needed for the algorithm that I am going to run. Okay. Now we will detect using a perceptor. So we have this data that I have already shown you. I've already shown you. We have some data. We have a message which says that whether it's a spam or ham. Okay. So what I have done is that I have created a CSV file out of it. Okay. Out of those CSV file, you can see I have found these words. If there is a word name is sex or it's a boy, I am saying whether it's a ham or spam. Okay. So you can see if the sex is 0 and y is 0, 1, then it's a ham. 0, 1, it's a ham. 1, 1, it's a ham. But you can see if the sex is coming before by, it says spam. Okay, so this kind, how did I find out? These messages are actually being converted. So in these messages only, we found out the sex and by terms. Out of those, this labeling is already done, whether it's a ham or spam. Out of those, we found out whether the sex is coming before ham, by, or by is coming before sex, or how many number of terms in there in sex and by. All these things are being converted into a CSV file and put into it. So you can see the number. This is the number. How many number of terms with how many number of word, or we can say the frequency of the word of this word sex, or the frequency of the word by. We have put it. Okay, based on that frequency, we are saying whether it's a ham or spam. Okay, now we will use this spam. Use this one second. Now we will use this to classify whether it's a ham or spam. How will you do that? I will just explain it to you through some text. Then we will go to it. Okay. So let me add one side. Okay, so let's say I'm saying if let's say I'm saying this is sex, sex and by. So I'm saying, let's say if the number of the frequency of sex and 0 and 0, then we will say it's a spam or it's a ham. Okay, or if the frequency is 0 1, let's say we are saying this ham. If the frequency is 1 0, then also we are saying this is a ham. Okay, but if you are getting sex and by, this is just an example. This might not be the same age in case of the CSV file. There we have used a different format. Okay, I'm just giving you an example how this perceptron works. Okay, so you can see if this is 0 0, we are saying that it's a ham. If it's a 0 1, we are saying this is a ham. If it's 1 0, we are saying this ham. If both the sex and by are there, we can say this is a spam. Now we will use this kind of classification to actually do this perceptron algorithm. Okay, so before doing that, we will just see how these spam filters work. Okay, so you can see in artificial neural, in biological neural networks, we have used these neurons and all these dendrites where we actually get this data from different sensors, and based on those sensors, let's say you have this eye, you have this, you have nose, you have ear, all these sensors are there. Based on this sensor data, these neurons actually work in your biological intelligence and come up with what kind of object it is. Let's say you are looking into something, you can say that whether it's a mango or it's a banana or an apple. Okay, that's how your biological intelligence works. But in case of a neural network, what happens is that you get the input. Okay, you get the input data like this messages I told you. You get this input data. Based on the input data, some weight is given. What weight should be given? Let's say we are using this word sex and by. So what weight should be given to this word sex? What weight should be given to this word by, so that it will be a spam, so that it will be a ham? That is going to be defined by these weights. Okay, these weights are going to define whether it's a spam or ham. Okay, so how to all these mathematical terms we will see now. So categorizing emails based on the presence or the absence of particular keywords occurring within the text of the emails within a certain frequency. Okay, so like in this example, you can see by 1 and sex 0, we are saying that it's a ham. Ham means not a spam. By 0 and sex 1, we are saying again it's a ham. By 0 and sex 0, so we are saying that it's a ham. But you can see there are both the terms ham, by and sex, we are saying that it's a spam. Okay, so a threshold value is identified to separate the spam messages. So you can say that if the summation of both the terms is greater than 1, then we can say that it's a spam. So you can see if you take by plus sex, it is 1. So we can say that it's a ham. But in this case, in the fourth case, you can see by plus sex is equal to 2, which is greater than 1. Okay, so we can say that it's a spam. This is just an example again. People may come up with their own perceptions over here. So you can see in the above case, scoring function y equal to b plus s. If you, let's say we are not using any artificial neural network or perceptron, you are using some static algorithm. So you can say that if your y equal to b plus s, then if it is greater than 1, then it's a spam. If it is less than equal to 1, it's a ham. Okay, this, let's say this is one of the static algorithms that you have defined. Then we will see how from the static algorithm you will go to this neural networks part. Okay, so different weights can be assigned to the representative variables. Here we have assigned the same weight to both the variables. So by and sex, both of them we have assigned the same weights. Keyword sex contained within the message is indicative of a greater probability of spam than word by. Okay, so you guys know if a keyword contains sex, then it has greater probability. So you can give a better weight or a as compared to by, you can give a larger weight. So you can see I have given weight 3 and weight 2. This is just an example again. I am giving 3 means what? 3 by 5. I am giving 60% probability to sex and 40% probability to buy, saying that if a word buy comes inside this message with 40% probability and a sex comes with a probability of 60% or more, then only we will say that it's a spam. Okay, that's why you can come up with a function y equal to 2b plus 3s. This is just an example. Again, this is static. After seeing some of the messages, you can come up with. We have still not reached to perception level. We are still looking into how this static previously how the static algorithms are being developed by looking into the mails. Okay, by looking into the mails, people were thinking, yes, the sex word is there 3 times and this by word is there 2 times, then we can say that it's a spam. But if it's less than that, then we can say that okay, it's not a spam. This kind of things. Previously, people were doing this kind of what do you say, classification. A threshold value between 4 and 5 allows us to properly separate them. So if you see that, now again we will go to that by 1 sex 0, so you do 2b plus 3s. Okay, so you can say that it's less than 4, so it's a ham. Okay, if it's greater than 4, it's a spam. So you can see in this case 1 1, so if you put 2b plus 3s, it is greater than 4, you can say that it's a spam. So these kind of static algorithms were there. So in the above, so this is not the one. One second. So in general, we can say we take the function as y equal to summation of 1 to n wi xi. So w is the weight that is given to a word and xi is the input. Input means it's a sex or boy in this example. Okay, and in weight, how much weight should be given? How much weight should be given? One second. Should be given. Okay, based on this, we say whether it's a spam or ham. So if y is greater than equal to theta, theta is the threshold. Theta is the threshold. If it's greater than a threshold, then we will say that it's a spam. If it's less than theta, then we will say that it's a ham, or we will assign a -1 value. Now, this is the static filtering that we do in case of a spam that we were previously done. Now, how this thing actually can be converted into a perceptron. Okay, so perceptron, I told you there would be. So if you go to this diagram, previously I show you. One second. So this diagram, this is a perceptron diagram. Okay, perceptron. So you can see in this case, these inputs are given. Along with these inputs, some weights are assigned. Okay, now this perceptron. So in static case, where we come up with like either b plus s or 2b plus 3s, all the static cases, how this 2 or 3 can be learned. These are the weights. Okay, so perceptron helps us to find out these weights. Okay, so you can see, you will actually find what is this, what is the weight for this by should be given, what is the weight should be given to this sex. All these things should be found out. Okay, how this can be done? Let's go to that slide. Okay, so just as the brain's neurons activate in the case of a positive signal, they remain inert otherwise. Okay, so if it's a sex, it will say that it's if it's a sex plus by with some frequency, then we will say that it's a spam. Okay, if it's not, then it's a ham. Okay, so just as the brain's neurons activate in the case of a positive signal and remain inert otherwise, perceptron uses the threshold value via an activation function. Okay, in case of neural networks, we use some activation function where you use the value that is generated by this weight and this input. We use it to allow it to go through a activation function and find out whether it's a spam or a ham. Assign a +1 value when pre-established threshold value exists, otherwise -1. Okay, so if it exceeds a pre-established threshold value, we say that it is +1 means it's a span. If it is not, then we will say that -1. Initialize the weights to a predefined value. So you can see in case of a static case, you are saying that its the weight is 2, its weight is 3. But in case of a perceptron, you will initialize. Okay, you will initialize with this some value by using this error that is coming. Okay, using the error, we will see how to calculate this error. Using this error, you will adopt the weights, or you can say modify the weights. So initialization of the weights is done using 0, 0. Calculate the output value yi for corresponding training sample xi. Okay, by this formula yi equal to summation of wi xi, we will calculate. Then update the weights on the distance between the expected output, or we can say this is the error. So this is your actual value and this is your predicted value. Okay, so using this actual value and predicted value, will get the error. Using this error, you try to modify these weights. Okay, we will do the one example, then it will be much more clear. So how these weights are updated? Weight update equal to wi equal to wi plus delta wi. Okay, where delta wi equal to eta multiplied by y minus yi. So you can say y is the actual, okay, and yi is the predicted value that we got. Okay, so where eta is the learning rate. So for every neural network, we will have a learning rate by how much it is learning. Okay, so we'll see that generally this value is kept between 0 to 1.0. Value of the learning rate is crucial for learning of the perception. Okay, when you are doing some learning, so the value of the learning rate is very crucial, how you reach to the algorithm. Okay, so I was showing you this example. So you can say, let's say you have some data. We will use the perception model over here. So you have this 0, 0 where you are saying hand, 0, 1 you are saying that it's a hand, 1, 0 you are saying that it's a hand, 1, 1 let's say you are saying this is a span. So you can convert this ham and span to +1 or -1. So let's say 0, 0 ham means, let's say it's not a span, so we'll put some -1 value. 0, 1 means again you can say it's a -1. 1, 0 -1, but it's as it's a span, so you can put some +1 value. So this is the actual value that we need. So into the neural network, so let's say this is your neural network, okay, x1 and x2, or we can directly use over here. Let's say you are using a input by and sex. Okay, so there would be some weight to it, wb and ws. Now if you get this summation of wi xi, you will get something. Okay, now if that is passed through a activation function, I told you activation function, in this case we will use if it's greater than some threshold or not. Okay, if it's greater than some threshold or not, we will assign whether it's a 1 or 0. Okay, so if you go to this example, so you can see over here. So if we have written, if y is greater than equal to theta, then fy equal to +1. If y is less than theta, then fy is -1. Okay, so if you put it, so you can see your f of y is greater than equal to theta, we will say that it's a +1. If fy is less than theta, we will say that it's a -1. Okay, so we will use this perception model to do the calculations. Okay, so let's say in the first case, what will happen? So let's say in the first iteration, what will happen? Your sex is 0 and by is 0. Okay, let's say the initialization is done like as I told you. Let's say wb equal to 0, first weight is 0, and for the sex it is also 0. And let's say we use this threshold as 0.5 and learning rate as 0.1. Let's say you can take anything. Okay, I've just used 0.5 because you are using 0 and 1 values. So you can take anything, that is not an issue. Even this learning rate can be taken from anything between 0 to 1. Okay, so let's say wb equal to 0, ws equal to 0, theta equal to 0.5, and eta equal to 0.1. So in the first case, what will happen? So you will find summation of wi xi, which is equal to, again if you will put it, is like 0 multiplied by 0 plus, because wb is 0, and 0 multiplied by 0, so you will get 0. Okay, so if you check, let's say this is your y value, so y is less than 0.5. So in this case, you will get fy greater less than theta. Okay, so if your y is less than 0.5, so you will get the value as f of y as how much? +1. Sorry, f of y is less than theta, so you will get -1. Okay, so if you find out the error, the actual error will be actual minus predicted. Okay, so this is your predicted value. So if you do actual minus predicted, so your actual is -1. You can see over here. So it would be -1 minus 1, which will equal to 0. Okay, so there is no error. No error means there is no updation of weights. Okay, so you don't have to update the weights. So the weights will remain as WB equal to 0 and WS equal to 0. Okay, then again we will go to the second sample. So this first sample is completed. Now we will go to the second sample, that is 0, 1. So again you will do the summation of WI. Okay, so again you will get 0 if you put it 0 multiplied by this, because these weights are 0, so you are getting 0 only. Okay, so your error will be again 0 over here. Error will be 0, so no updation is required. Okay, now if you go to the third again, summation of WI, in this case, the third case also you are going to get a 0 only, because 1 multiplied by 0, 0 multiplied by 0, which will equal to 0, which is less than 0.5. So you are getting predicted value of -1. So you will get a 0 only. So error will be 0 again. Okay, so no updation. Okay, but if you go to the third term, let's say we are doing summation of WI, not the third term but the fourth. Okay, which is 1, 1. Okay, so if you do, you will get a 0. Summation is 0. But you can, if you put Fy of less, because in this case Fy is less than theta, so your predicted will be -1 now. Your predicted will be -1. You can see the predicted is -1. Okay, so the error in this case you are going to get, error is equal to actual minus predicted. Actual minus predicted, which will be equal to, sorry, your actual is +1 and predicted is -1. So you are going to get a +1 minus -1. So you are getting +2. Okay, so if you are getting +2, now if you go to your algorithm, so you can see using this algorithm of perceptron, your delta Wi will be eta multiplied by actual minus predicted, or you can see the error. So delta Wi is going to be updated now. So if you put the delta Wi over here, so your, or we can see the last weight would be WB equal to WB plus delta WB. Okay, so you can put it like how much? WB is 0 plus, this is your error, 2 multiplied by the learning rate. So you will get 0.2. Similarly for WS, it would be WS plus delta WS, which will be again equal to 0 plus 2 multiplied by 0.1 equal to 0.2. So you can see now these weights are updated. WB equal to 0.2 and WS equal to 0.2. Now in the second iteration, you are going to use this 0.2. So you are going to use WB equal to 0.2 and WS equal to 0.2 and do the classification. So for again you will, so if you say the samples are like this 1, 2, 3, 4, or I will use a different, let's say this is 1, 2, 3 and 4. So let's say for the first case, what will happen? Again you will use this 0.2 and 0.2. So previously, as we are using this initialization 0, 1, 0, we are not going to use that. You are going to use the updated weights, which are 0.2 and 0.2. Okay, so again we will find out y equal to summation of Wi xi. Okay, so if you do that, you will get again 0. Okay, so 0 is less than 0.5, so we can say that it's the predicted is -1. Okay, so the error is 0. For the second case, again you are going to get y equal to 0 only. 1 second, this is not 0. So if you do summation of Wi, this is 0. But in this case, the second case, y is not going to be 0, because you can see WB multiplied by 0 plus WS multiplied by 1. So you are going to get 0.2. Okay, so your 0.2 is less than 0.5. Okay, so again your predicted will be equal to -1. So your error will be equal to 0. Okay, because the error is actual minus predicted. So actual is -1 and predicted is -1. So you are going to get a 0. In the third case again, as the error is 0, you are not updated. Okay, in the third case again, you are going to get y equal to 0.2, because 0.2 multiplied by 1 plus 0 multiplied by 0.2, you are going to get 0.2. Again your 0.2 is less than 0.5, so the predicted would be -1. So error would be 0 again in this case. But for the fourth case, if you do it, you are going to get y equal to 0.4, because it is 0.2 multiplied by 1 plus 0.2 multiplied by 1. So your 0.4 is less than 0.5, So your predicted is again -1. So you are getting a predicted value is equal to -1. So this error will be different now, because you can see the actual is +1 and predicted is -1. So your error would be actual minus predicted equal to +1 minus -1 will be equal to +2. Okay, so if as it is +2, then again you need to update the weights. Because error is 0 means you don't need any updation. Now error equal to +2 means there is some updation that needs to be done. So your WB will be equal to WB plus delta WB. We have seen this. So WB is in this case 0.2 plus delta WB would be eta multiplied by the error. Okay, we are doing only this WB plus eta multiplied by error. Okay, so eta is 0.1, which is the learning rate, and the error is 0.2. So you are going to get 0.4. Similarly for WS, we are going to get WS plus delta WS, which is again equal to 0.2 plus 0.1 multiplied by 0.2. It will be equal to 0.4. Okay, so this is the updated weight. Now again we need to check by using, so we are going to do this exercise as long as we are not getting error equal to 0 for every point. Okay, so at the end our algorithm should be, our model should be in such a way that for every point you should be able to get the error to be equal to 0. Okay, now in the third iteration, if you run it by using this WB and WS, you are going to get 0 for all the errors. Okay, for the first case, if you use it, for the first case, if you use it, it would be 0 multiplied by 0.4 plus 0 multiplied by 0.4, which will equal to 0, which is less than 0.5. So the predicted will be -1 and the error is equal to 0. Okay, now for the second case, it would be something like, if you go to the second case, it is 0, 1. Okay, so it would be something like 0 multiplied by 0.4 plus 1 multiplied by 0.4, which will be equal to again 0.4, which is less than 0.5. So as it is less than 0.5, you can say that its predicted is -1. Actual is also -1 for this case. So your error will be equal to 0. For the third case, it will be 1 multiplied by 0.4 plus 0 multiplied by 0.4, which will be equal to 0.4, which is less than 0.5. So you can say that your predicted is -1. And for this case, the third case, if you go there, for the third case, you can see that the actual is also -1. So your error is equal to 0. Now for the fourth case, where the values are 1 and 1, so you can see 1 multiplied by 0.4 plus 1 multiplied by 0.4 equal to 0.8, which is greater than 0.5. So as it is greater than 0.5, your predicted will be equal to now +1. Okay, so which was -1 previously, now your predicted is +1 now. Now the error will be equal to 0. So you can see this actual is also +1 for this case. So this is +1 and this predicted is also +1. So for all the cases, now you are getting a 0 error. That means this is your model. That means your W1 equal to 0.4 and W2 equal to 0.4. Again, this is based on the initial values that we have taken and the learning rate. If someone takes a different initialization value and different learning rate, they are going to get a different weights for that. Okay, so if you draw it, let's say if you draw it, okay, so this is your, let's say 0, 0, this is your 1, 0, this is your 0, 1. If you draw it in a Cartesian plane, I'm saying, okay, this is, let's say, your x1 and this is your x2. So this is your 0, 0, this is your 1, 0, this is your 0, 1. Let's say this is following a pattern that these are not spam messages. Let's say this is a spam message where it is 1, 1. Okay, now the line that we got, what is the line that we got? Y equal to W1 x1 plus W2 x2. So if you put it, you will get 0.4 x1 plus 0.4 x2. Okay, so you can get this by putting. So if you put 0, 0, then if you put into this threshold value of 0.5, you are going to get a -1. That means it's not a spam. It's not a, if you put into 0, 1, you will get not a spam. If you put into 1, 0, you will get a not a spam. So this is how your perception algorithm works. Okay, so if you I will run this algorithm, the environment that I have set up, I will run that algorithm over there. Okay, so how to run that algorithm in the environment that we have set up? So we installed all of them, then we can run this Jupyter Notebook. So the notebook that we installed, so you can run this command Jupyter Notebook. What it will essentially do is that it will open a browser. If you run this Jupyter Notebook, it will open a browser where you can see this local host. It will open a local host browser where you can browse your files. Okay. So if I browse to my code that I have written, so my code is inside this. So you can see this Perceptron algorithm that I have written. So the first one is just for checking what kind of versions of different libraries that I am using. As I told you, I will show you how this watermark is used. So you can see by using this watermark, I am able to see what are the different libraries that I am using, the Python libraries. Okay. So after that, I am using this SMS spam as not this one. So you can see I will use this file SMS spam perception. So this is the file that I showed you. This is the file. So if sex is 0 by 1, that is it is a ham, or 0 1 it is a ham, 1 1 it is a ham. So I will load that file as a pandas data frame. So what happens by that? All these values. So if you run just show this, let's say we'll do this print df. Okay, so you can see this data frame. So you can see all this came as a data frame. For the 0th instance, it's a ham 0, 1. So if you open the Excel file, so you can see the first one is ham 0, 1. So you can see ham 0, 1. The second one is a ham 0, 1. So you can see this ham 0, 1. Third one is ham 1, 1. So you can see third. Again, you can see this 1, 1 is ham over here. I told you that is one of the in the while showing you in the slides, I told you that I have taken this example, but again the data sets can come up with a different data. Okay, so they are saying that even if it's 1 1, we are getting a ham, but you can see this 1 0, they are saying that it's a spam. That is okay. It depends on the data that you are using. Okay, so this is converted to a pandas data frame. After that, we are saying that we will convert this ham and spam to numerical values. So we are saying that if it's a ham, convert it into +1. If it's a spam, convert it into -1. So if you do that, then you can see this y np.where means wherever there is a spam, it will be converted to -1. Now, if you print this, let's say we are doing this print y, if you print it, what you are going to get? You are going to get this 1 1 1 -1. We are not getting ham or spam. Now this ham and spam are converted to numerical values. So whenever there is a ham, it will say that it's 1. Whenever there is a spam, it will say that it's -1. Okay. Now using this, there's a function in scikit where you can, so this data set can be converted to, so as I told you in machine learning, supervised learning, there is this training part and testing part. So how much data should be used for training and testing, that can be done through this train test split function, which is in scikit-learn. Okay. So if you do that, let's say I am putting 0.3 means for testing it will give 30% and for training it will give 70%. So if you go to this data, there are 100 rows over here. I have not taken more than that. I have taken only 100 rows or 99 rows only, because the first row is just for putting this name of the columns. Okay, so there are 99 rows only. Now out of this 99, it will convert to 0.3. That means 33 rows will be assigned to text and 66 rows will be assigned to not 33 but 30%. Okay, around 30 rows will be assigned to text and around 60 will be assigned to around 70 will be assigned to tree. Okay, then in scikit-learn, there's a direct function. Whatever the mathematics that we learned in Perceptron, there is a direct term called as Perceptron function. Okay, by using that, you will be able to get that W1 and W2 value. You don't have to write the whole algorithm. You can directly use this function Perceptron, which is in scikit-learn. Okay, so you can see maximum iterations 10. What is this maximum iterations? This is like I told you, like in 3-4 iterations, we reach to a case where all the errors are 0. But it might happen that this you might not reach, even after doing some iterations, you will not be able to reach that. So there should be a maximum or threshold number of iterations. So here I have put the maximum iteration to be 10 and the eta value or the learning rate I have put 0.1. Okay, so it will automatically learn if you run it. Then you will do the prediction on the text data. So you will do y prediction equal to p dot predict. So the Perceptron model will be able to predict the text data now. So you will get the predicted data. Now you can plot it. So you can see, if you plot it, you can see the star marks are the +1, means these are the spans, and these are the not the spans. Or in this case, I think I have taken the opposite, like spam means -1 and ham means +1. So you can see in this case, the spans are -1. So all these points that you are getting, like the 1 and 0. So in this case, if you go over there, using this number of frequency of the words, it is able to find out the perception line. Okay, by which line should be able to divide them. Okay, so in this case, you can see it is able to divide some of this data. Now you can also find out the accuracy by comparing it with the actual data. So if you compare it with the actual data, that is the Y test and Y predicted, you will be able to how much samples are accurately predicted. So in this case, as I have used only 10 iteration, I am using 70%. So by using this, by changing this iteration also, you are going to get a different value. Okay, but again, it's not like that. If you keep on increasing the iteration, you will be able to get good accuracy. It's not like that. Okay, so you have to continuously, you have to check your model whether you are able to get the desired output or not. Whenever you are not getting the desired output, that means you have to stop your algorithm and reassess your model. Okay, so this is just an example how to run the perceptron model to classify the data, spam or ham messages. Okay, but in this case, you can see the data is very simple. Okay, we are just saying that sex and Y, but it might happen that there are other malicious words. We are saying just saying that sex and Y are malicious words. It's not like that. There could be other malicious words. So how to do in that case? Okay, so in this case, as the data is very small and the data are also linearly separable. That means if you put the spam messages into one side and ham messages into other side, in this case, they are easily linearly separable. But there might happen in this case, as I am going to show you another data. So you can see instead of sex and Y, I am using suspect and neutral. So this whole message can be divided into how many suspect words are there and how many neutral words are there. And now we want to classify that data based on this suspect and neutral. How are you going to do? Because perceptron is just a linearly separable. It will separate or classify the data that are linearly separable. Okay, if it's not linearly separable, then it will be a perceptron is not going to help. Okay, like in this case, you can see based on this suspect and neural, we need to classify the data. Okay, and these points are not linearly separable. I will show you this graph also. One second. So you can see for this data. Okay, so before that, I will just give you some slides. Okay, why have I taken that? So the pros and cons of perceptron, as I told you, if it's a linearly separable data, you will be able to do it. But let's say the ham and spam messages are randomly. Okay, there is no specific line which can separate them. Okay, that means they are not linearly separable. Okay, so in that case, perceptron is not going to work. Okay, even if you do for lots of number of iterations, it is not going to work. Or you are going to get one line, the second line, third line, but it is none of the lines will be able to actually linearly classify them because the data are being haphazardly haphazardly distributed over the plane. Okay, so in this case, generally in machine learning, we use the algorithm called as support vector machine. Okay, so the mathematics for the support vector machine is very complex. Okay, I am not going to tell that. Just I will show you how the spam detection with SVM can be done using scikit-learn and Python libraries. Okay, so in this case, separate class of data that can be represented in a multi-dimensional space. So what is the data in case of a single dimensional space? It takes a multi-dimensional space, or instead of a line, it is able to find out a hyperplane. Okay, how that hyperplane is done? So you can see in this case, instead of a line, a hyperplane is generated. So this hyperplane is generated. So in perception, the goal was to minimize the classification errors, but in case of SVM, to generate that hyperplane, the goal instead is to maximize the margin. So it will maximize the margin between the positive samples and negative samples. Okay, that is a whole lot of complete mathematics is there to find out this margin. Okay, so in SVM, you just remember the goal instead is to maximize the margin between the positive and negative samples. So what is that there will be different samples. So it will try to maximize that margin. Okay, so you can see one support vector will go through these points. Okay, positive samples. Let's say this is the black dots are the positive samples, okay, and the only the circles are the negative samples, or you can say these are the spams and these are the hams. Okay, what is that what it does is that the SVM, it tries to maximize this gap between these two, okay, by using support vectors. Okay, so the whole aim of SVM is to find out the maximum, like it tries to maximize the gap between this positive samples and negative samples. So at the end, it is going to get a hyperplane. Okay, I am not, this is, I know this is just, I am just giving you a superficial knowledge, but again, this mathematics is very complex and it will take another presentation by itself, this SVM. Okay, so just remember, whenever the samples are not linearly separable, SVM works very well. Okay, so you can directly use this SVM library that is there in scikit-learn, and you will be able to classify it. Okay, so if I go to that algorithm, this SVM algorithm, again we will you can see the data set that I have taken is the SMS spam SVM, this Excel sheet that I showed, not this one. So this Excel sheet, so you can see this this is not linearly separable, so I have taken this data to run into a SVM model. Okay, so if I run it again, I am classifying, so you can take the test size as 0.3, as I have already told you. Okay, then using this SVM, so you can see in scikit-learn there is a SBC class or SBC function, which is support vector classification. Okay, so you can directly import that function and you can run the training data and predict what is the prediction output. Okay, if you do that and plot it, okay, one second. So you can see the data are haphazardly here and there. So there is no linearly separable line that we could draw over here. Okay, so that, but you can see if you run the accuracy, here we are getting 0.84% accuracy using the SPM. Okay, so if the data is, so you need to remember, if your spam and ham messages that you are getting are not linearly separable using a perceptron, that means you first run the perceptron model. If you then don't get a good output, that means you can plot the data and see that the data are not linearly separable. In that case, what you can do, you can implement this SVM model to find out the classification. Okay, so here I have given given a very what do you say, trivial machine learning algorithm where we have used a perceptron model and it's a SVM model to classify the spam and ham message. But in reality, there would be many different difficult tasks. Okay, this is not that as easy as I told you. This is a very difficult task. Okay, because real-time detection of spam and ham messages is very difficult. In that case, generally very high-end machine learning algorithms such as these neural networks and these deep learning algorithms are being used to classify the data. But because of the time availability, we will not be able to go through all of them. But rather, we have just covered some of these topics, and I have done a hands-on on very trivial kind of machine learning algorithm, which is known as perceptron and SVM. Okay, so with that, I actually end my talk. I know I have not got any questions till now, but you guys can certainly ask. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you, Ram sir, for your nice presentation on AI for cybersecurity. There are few questions I will just read out. So, how AI can help in intrusion detection? So, can you tell?
Yes. So intrusion detection, again, as I told you, that machine learning algorithms are data hungry. Okay, so if you have some data, for if you are, let's say I gave you an example on SVM or this perceptron algorithms, if you have this data for intrusion detection, and if you put some in your network or in your router some kind of algorithm which will collect the data that yes, if this kind of softwares come, that's an intrusion. Okay, if you are able to classify that data, then you will be able to come up with an algorithm or come up with a neural network model or machine learning model where you will be able to say that yes, if this kind of data comes through your network, this is an intrusion. If that doesn't come into your model, then you can say that it's not an intrusion. So you can classify this data using the previous data that is available, the intrusion data that is available.
Okay. Next question is there any toolkit to detect intrusion detection section?
Toolkit, we can say this is the scikit-learn only in Python. I am not sure about the what do you say, this MATLAB part, because I have not worked on the MATLAB, I have worked on the Python only. But in Python, the scikit-learn library is only there to detect the intruders. Like the spams, we do know, we can do this for intrusion detection. Okay. Again, I told you only about the perceptron and SBM. Apart from that, there are other machine learning models such as this regression. Again, in regression, you will get linear regression, logistic regression. Then this KNN classifier is there. Then deep learning algorithm are there. All are there in this scikit-learn library only. In Python, in this scikit-learn library only, all these functions are there. So you can build them.
Okay. Next question is, can you elaborate on static and dynamic AI analysis?
Static. So again, for that we need to take some application, and for the spam filter, I don't have anything currently for static and
Actually, Ram sir, I,
yes sir, yes sir, hi sir. Yes, yes.
I asked this question regarding when you are giving the example of the automated vehicles. So you told that ki,
Okay, okay.
nowadays dynamic AI is running. So my perception was that ki, at that time how dynamic AI was working. Just regarding that. Later you have
So
given some description. So I got somewhat my answer. But yeah, if you will tell, that will be
So
good.
I can say in case of autonomous vehicle, actually my area is autonomous vehicle, computer vision plus cyber security. Okay, so what I do actually do is that the data that is already, we generally do some static learning kind of thing, previously available data. Okay, but for online data, again this online training has to be done. It is something like, say, for day one you got this kind of data and you are able to classify it. But by the end of day two, again you have got some data. Now you need to include this data, the day two data with the day one data, and again do the training. Okay, so that is
Yeah,
how
yeah.
you are going to increase your data set. At the same time, you are able to do the online training also. So all these autonomous vehicles actually do in that way. So they have some X amount of data, they do the training, based on that they do some classification or do some task. Okay, but at the end of day two, again they are going to get some data. So what they have to do is that they have to combine this day one data with the day two data, and they do the training for the whole of this data, not only the day two data. Because if you do only the training on the day two data, it might happen that the day one data might not be able to actually classify. Okay, so what they will do is that they will combine these two data and do the training. So that is some kind of dynamic training people do.
Yeah, yeah. Right, right. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. One more question is, can you please suggest how to make or ways to generate data set which can be used later by researchers for cyber security applications?
Okay, so this data set generation is itself is a very used task. So you can see this standard data sets or benchmark data sets that are available. You can see that it's not only just 2 or 3 days work. It is like 2 or 3 years. Sometimes some one of the PhDs itself they do this data generation only. Okay, so for data set you need to be very careful. Let's say I am talking about, I will give you this time and have an example only. So for emails you need to put it whether, so this message whether it's a spam, with this message whether it's a ham. So you have to do it by manually. Once you do that manually, you put it into the automated process to find out. So data set generation, there is no tool. So if there is a tool, then there is why need of an AI algorithm. If you have something which is able to say that it's a spam or ham, then why to come up with AI algorithms? You don't have that. That's why you are going creating the data set and using it in the AI based system to find out whether the future messages will be spam or not.
Okay, sir. Please stop sharing your screen. These are the only questions that we have in the chat box. Okay.
Yes.
So, uh,
I think my screen is not shared now, or is it?
no, now it's not shared. Okay. So, thank you, sir. Thank you for your nice talk on AI for security. Really, nowadays and in future, this AI will help the cyber security research. Thank you. So, thank you
Thank you,
all.
sir, for giving the opportunity to actually talk about it. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
maybe. Thank
So
you.
with this, I end this session, and I request all the participants to attend tomorrow's session starting from 10:30. Thank you. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, sir.